My name is Raya. Our lands have been at war for as long as we can remember. Our people never see eye to eye.
Mabuhay or in Kapampangan, luwid kayo. Welcome back to another video. It's me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian. And in this channel, I make videos about our people's history, our people's culture, and everything in between. So don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and subscribe. Raya and the Last Dragon just came out, so for today's video, as many of you requested, I'm doing a review of Raya and the Last Dragon, where I'll be sharing my initial thoughts on the movie itself and the world of Kumandra. And you know, from a perspective of a Southeast Asian historian and a Filipino culture bearer, a Kapampangan Tagalog culture bearer, and someone who also did filmmaking back in the day. But do not worry, this is my review without the spoilers. So if you want to see a full-on review with spoilers included and, you know, a more detailed breakdown of the movie itself and its significance to our diverse cultures and peoples in Southeast Asia, let me know in the comments below. But before we begin with today's review, I just want to remind everybody, I want to let you all know, if in case you did not know, March is Women's History Month. And for this month, I also made another video on Raya in real life, the fierce women of ancient Southeast Asia, featuring over a dozen, actually featuring 24 examples of real-world Raya, Sisu, and Namari. So stay tuned for that as well in the coming days. And since I haven't done my glad, mad, sad videos for a long time now, for almost 2 years now, so shout out to all my subscribers who remember my glad, mad, sad videos. Salámat for staying. I thought that, you know, I should make this review by following that format, by sharing what made me glad, what made me mad, and what made me sad about this whole movie. And then at the end, I'll add in love. Did I even love it? Was it even worth it? Let's begin. So first, what made me glad? So the first thing that made me glad about this movie was that the storyline is actually easy to follow, but you know, it's still very surprising. There's still a lot of surprises, and it's still very entertaining. But perhaps what made me glad the most about this movie was that this movie came out with almost perfect timing. Perfect timing because one, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, which was actually somehow reflected in this movie. I'm not gonna give away the spoilers, but it kind of gave me that vibe that, you know, we're in a pandemic and that the role of Kumandra was also experiencing something similar, very similar to what we're experiencing today. And perhaps even better timing because of all the rise, all these rising anti-Asian hate in the United States. You know, it's crucial for us during this time to see ourselves in the mainstream, not in the background, not a caricature character, but actually front and center of the mainstream pop culture, and, you know, be reflected in a good light. Our cultures be represented. And this is really crucial. This is really important because, well, many of you may not even know, but Southeast Asians have always been one of the most marginalized communities here in the US, here in America. And I've been working with Southeast Asian youth here in the US for over a decade now, for over 15 years now in various capacities. And I'm really glad that we have something like this in the mainstream, something like this for our youth. And although it's not 100% accurate, but then again, you know, it's a fantasy world and we should not be expecting it to be 100% accurate to reflect the real world Southeast Asia, because that would be a very difficult task to accomplish. Again, just a reminder to everybody that this is a fantasy movie, a fantasy world inspired by Southeast Asia. So we shouldn't really be expecting 100% accuracy. You know, we shouldn't be nitpicking on every little detail that they missed, because, you know, it's a fantasy world. I'm glad that they actually did a good job, and I'm glad that we have something like this in the mainstream that, you know, it's still a reflection, a beautiful reflection of our diverse cultures and our diverse people in Southeast Asia. It's really priceless for our children to have something like this, to have a mainstream movie, let alone from Disney. You know, to see faces, to see skin tones that are very similar to our own, you know, that affirmation of one's identity, especially at an early age, is very crucial, and it's definitely empowering. And, you know, this is really important for us, for many of us, from many marginalized communities, especially in a society like the United States. And, you know, even within this bigger Asian American identity, this broader Asian American Pacific Islander community, this API community here in the United States, representation is still disproportionate. And Southeast Asians, along with Pacific Islanders, have almost always often been pushed to the very back. And I'm also glad that In this movie, they talk a lot about trust. And, because this brings me back to all the anti-Asian sentiments, which, by the way, is nothing new here in America. This whole thing about not trusting others just because they don't look like you, just because they belong to a different community other than your own. This whole thing about, hating others by assuming the worst about people, about the others, just because they don't look like you, just because they don't have the same skin tone as you, without even giving them a fair chance. This whole thing about seeing the differences, what divides us, rather than, looking into what connects us with each other. This whole mistrust, this whole misunderstanding, this whole hatred of those who may not look or speak like you, this is where a lot of these hate crimes really begin. And it really does not help, when an entire society like the United States is built upon racism. It's built upon the exploitation of the others. I mean, there's a lot of layers into this, a lot to unpack, a lot to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So if you're in the US, make sure to take ethnic studies courses or even major in ethnic studies to learn more. And actually, if you're in the US, help us make ethnic studies more accessible to a lot more people, from preschool to college, not just in college, from preschool to college, K to 12 to college. So now back to Raya, this whole exchange between Raya and Sisu, where Raya said that something like, the world is broken and you cannot trust anyone. And then Sisu replies with, maybe it's broken because you don't trust anyone. This is really a great reminder for us, a timely reminder for us, to find ways to unite with people instead of finding ways to divide people. And I'm glad that beyond the trailer, in this whole movie, I saw a lot more cultural references that are, very familiar to us Southeast Asians. And not just Southeast Asian in general, but also for us Filipinos. Whether you're exposed to our indigenous cultures or our diverse, colorful cultures or not, there's a lot to see and appreciate. And again, I don't want to give out spoilers in this video, but here are some hints. From people turning into stone to Sisu's full name and, some beautiful landscape in Kumandra, there's really a lot to see and appreciate. So again, if you want to see me do a full breakdown review of this whole movie sometime in the little bit far future, to let people watch the movie first, let me know in the comments below, a whole review with spoilers included. Mad. So what is mad about this movie is that mad animation. The details are amazing. It really makes me wanna explore more of Kumandra. Like literally, it makes me wanna teleport from my seat right here to Kumandra to visit all these beautiful lands, all these beautiful landscapes and places, all these beautiful communities, these villages, and meet all of these people. Don't even get me started with the fight scenes. The fight scenes are epic. Especially the duel, these fight scenes between the nemesis. You have Raya on one side and then you have Namari on the other side. These fight scenes are epic. A lot of their movements are very realistic. It felt real. It did not feel like I was watching a cartoon. And the evil spirits, they're terrifying enough to put you on the edge of your seat, but not too terrifying to scare your children away. And throughout this whole movie, the colors are vibrant. And if you've been to Southeast Asia, no matter what part or what country, the culture and the people, the communities are very vibrant. I'm glad that it's reflected beautifully in this movie. From the smiles, to the colors, to the lanterns, to the environment, to the landscape, to the animals, and even the water itself. And this whole animation is mad epic. It's amazing. Especially the water. The water really felt real. For a water to feel real in an animation, that's great. And for someone like me who was born in the year of the dragon, who was raised a swimmer, who's my natural element, I feel at home most in water. I love the way they animated the water, the element in this movie. I really appreciate what they did with the water, the power of water in this movie. It's really beautiful. You should really see it. And speaking of seeing things, when I first saw Sisu, the first time I saw Sisu in the teaser trailer of this movie, I actually did not like it. I had mixed feelings on how they depicted the dragon. And I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it started raining, and I think Sisu telling me something. It started raining, so it feels like I'm at home in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia, where it rains a lot. But again, back to Sisu. In the beginning, I had mixed feelings on how they depicted Sisu. But in the end, it turns out that I actually appreciate it. You know, after watching the movie fully, I actually like it. I actually love how they depicted the dragons in this movie, and you know, where they went with the dragons. I appreciate where they went with the dragons. And it actually reminded me a lot of our own Bakunawa from the Philippines, our indigenous dragons found in the mythologies of the Visayan people in the Philippines. You know, it also reminded me of the diverse mythologies surrounding the Nagarajas, who are often associated with water. So I love that. And if you're not familiar with the dragons, the Nagarajas or the Bakunawas or the other dragons in Southeast Asia, check out the links up here or down below for my reaction to the trailer and the teaser of this movie, where I expanded more about the cultural significance of dragons and the diverse cultures of Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. Because many people actually think that there's no dragons in Filipino mythology, but there is. So check them out. So now, let's look at what made me sad about this movie. So I'm still a little disappointed that, you know, as many have pointed out on the internet, that most of the voice actors in this movie are not really from Southeast Asia. You know, they're Asian, but they're not really Southeast Asian, most of them. You know, don't get me wrong, they were great. They're amazing. I love Benedict Wong, I love Gemma Chan, I love Aquafina, I love Kelly Marie Tran. So, you know, they're amazing, but I don't know what happened during the casting. I hope they had a good reason, but I wasn't there. But, you know, I would have loved to have seen more Southeast Asian voices, heard more Southeast Asian voices in this movie, since it's meant to represent Southeast Asia. So yeah, that's one thing that I kind of wish they had more Southeast Asian voices in this movie. But again, I wasn't there in the casting. Maybe they had a good reason why. But no, it's still a great movie. And I'm actually glad that there's a lot of Southeast Asians involved behind the scenes. You know, from the expert anthropologists that they had helping them to the writers themselves. There's a lot of Southeast Asian talent that was involved in creating this movie. So shout out to all the Southeast Asian talents, the Southeast Asian creative minds that made this amazing movie a reality. Dakal pong salamat kaya kayo. Thank you very much for bringing us the world of Raya, the world of Kumandra. But perhaps the saddest thing for me about this movie is that, you know, it's a Southeast Asian inspired movie, a Southeast Asian inspired animation, a fantasy universe, a vibrant universe where Southeast Asians are meant to be front and center. Yet, sadly, the vast majority of Southeast Asians cannot even watch it. You know, at least not yet. Because Disney Plus, sadly, is not available in Southeast Asia, where, you know, 600 to 700 million Southeast Asians live. You know, so I do hope that this movie becomes more accessible to the millions of people that Raya was meant to represent. So now, let's talk about love. Did I love it? Is it worth it? Well, I loved it. I would actually watch it again and again. I'm probably gonna watch it after making this video. And you know, I would love to see a sequel, or even better, an entire cinematic universe around Kumandra. You know, revolving around the world of Kumandra, from sequel movies to TV series to the comics and spin-offs, and maybe even a live-action version of Raya and the Last Dragon. But you know, not like what happened to the Avatar: The Last Airbender. We don't want any of that mess. And yes, I would love for Raya's universe to grow even further, to maybe even explore the lands beyond Kumandra. Because you know, Southeast Asia is a region that is very rich in diversity, diverse cultures, diverse mythologies that are interconnected with one another, but nevertheless diverse. So there's a lot of materials to choose from. There's a lot of mythologies to learn from. You know, so I would really love for Raya's universe to grow bigger. And as I've mentioned in my reaction video, one of the things that I love the most about Raya and the Last Dragon is that women are at the front and center of everything, of the entire movie. You know, from warriors to queens to fierce babies to adorable grandmas. I love that women are in the front of center of Raya's universe. You know, again, like I mentioned in my reaction videos to the trailer, Southeast Asian women have always been at the forefront of society, at the forefront of action in Southeast Asia, in the long history of Southeast Asia, from the ancient world to the present day. And you know, many of us actually forget that gender equality is actually an indigenous concept to many of our diverse indigenous people in Southeast Asia and across Australasia. It's not a foreign concept. You know, long before we had our modern day feminists, gender equality one way or another already existed in our islands. You know, long before they were discovered, our ancestors already had their own indigenous concept of equality, regardless of your gender, regardless of your sexuality. So it's amazing to see that this is somehow reflected in this movie. It's an amazing reminder for us of how amazing our indigenous and ancient cultures were. So stay tuned in the coming days. Again, I made a video about over 2 dozen fierce women from Southeast Asian history, from legendary queens to warriors, fearsome warriors in the battlefield. So stay tuned for that video. It's coming very soon in a few days. And actually, I'm also working on a zine, a book, and a coloring book about the real-world examples of Raya, Namari, and Sisu, you know, from the rich and colorful history, the deep history of Southeast Asia. You know, for us to learn more about these fierce women in ancient Southeast Asia. So check out the links below to pre-order your signed copies today, and stay tuned for that video coming in the coming days. So overall, I love Raya and the Last Dragon. I love that we have this movie today, especially for our younger generation, especially for our children and the future generations of our community, you know. But I also do understand that it's not a perfect movie, that it's far from a perfect representation of Southeast Asia, of what Southeast Asia is. It's not a perfect representation of our diverse cultures and our diverse people, but you know, honestly, I think it's worth it. I think they did a great job. This reminds us of the importance of supporting our local artists, the importance of supporting our culture bearers, you know, the importance of appreciating our own elders, many of whom are the last bearers of our culture, the last bearers of our traditions, you know, the last bearers of our rich mythologies and oral histories. You know, especially in our modern day where the Marvel mythology, the Disney movies are more famous than our own people's mythology. Actually, the vast majority of Filipinos are more familiar with Greek gods than their own people's gods and goddesses, our own deities, our own diwatas. Many people even think that diwatas are just fairies, not the gods and goddesses of our ancestors. You know, if we do not appreciate our own roots, if we do not put our own cultures at the forefront, then, you know, how can we expect foreign companies like Disney to do a perfect job for us? I mean, there's a reason why Korean culture is popular, it's famous, not just in Asia, but around the world. Because they're very well supported, not just by private companies, but very well supported by their own government. And I'm saying this because we have a ton of talented people in Southeast Asia. Filipinos alone have a huge contribution in the world of mainstream comics, from DC to Marvel. A huge contribution in the world of animation, you know, from the likes of Hanna-Barbera back in the day to Pixar and Disney today. There's a ton of Filipinos, very talented Filipinos and Asians working behind the scenes of many of these mainstream movies, many of these mainstream animations and comics. And not just back then, from back then till now. But sadly, because of the lack of support and funding in places like the Philippines, many of our talented Filipinos, many of our talented Southeast Asians are forced to work for foreign companies. And you know, they're using all their amazing talents in helping other people tell other people's stories. But you know, they rarely do they get a chance to create stories, to create worlds with their own voices, with their own faces, with our own voices and our own faces. So if anything, I do hope that Raya and the Last Dragon will help us in opening up more doors for more of our talented people, in helping us opening more doors for our diverse cultures to break through in the mainstream, and actually not just to be seen, but also for us to have more pop culture that are truly and genuinely reflective of our people's mythologies, of our people's realities, and the struggles and triumphs that we face every day. So I'll end it right here. And again, this is my review without the spoilers. So if you want to see a full-on review of Raya and the Last Dragon from your friendly Pinoy historian, let me know in the comments below. And for my Filipino viewers out there, let me know if you want to see a Tagalog review of Raya and the Last Dragon. Comment down below. And that is it for me today. So if you like this video and learned a thing or two, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and subscribe. But before we go, today's shoutout goes to Nat Lisa from Malaysia. Check out her amazing breakdown of the Raya trailer on Reddit. I'll include the link below. And shout out to Hiraya from the Philippines, to Noah Hasia from Thailand, and to Nurul Azhar from Indonesia, and Salakot Cinemas from Canada. And special shout out to Alvin Katakutan from California, one of my most amazing patrons. If you enjoyed the fight scenes from Raya like I did, check out Alvin's Pamana Kali Martial Arts School in Los Angeles, where they teach you Filipino traditional martial arts and other martial arts from Southeast Asia like Silat and Muay Thai. So maraming salamat po to all of you, to all my viewers and supporters from the Philippines, to Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Canada, the US, and beyond. And of course, special thanks to all my patrons Thank you for all your love and support in helping me make more videos like this. Maraming salamat po. Dakal pong salamat. So for those who want to help me make more videos like this, show your support and please be my patron or get a copy of any of my books or any of the merch linked down below. Maraming salamat po. Dakal pong salamat. Kapon Krab, terima kasih, come on. Thank you for all your love and support. I really appreciate it. See you next time, or in Tagalog kita kits, and in Kapampangan, Mikitix.
The world's broken. You can't trust anyone.
Maybe it's broken because you don't trust anyone. You just have to take the first step.